Hey everybody, and welcome to Epic Everyday, our weekday podcast for busy, stressed out Christians who want to do more than just get through the week. I'm Liz Frericks, and this is my husband Evan.
Hi there.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us on this wonderful Wednesday. So since it's Wednesday, we are going to talk about being centered, which is living out of the essence of who God designed you to be. And we've been talking about kindness this week, so we thought we'd talk about styles of kindness.
Yeah.
How do you be kind?
Right. Because that can look different. I mean, we've got our ultimate example in God being kind to us, but it's kind of like love. There's, like Mr. Rogers says, there's many ways to say I love you. And kindness isn't love, but...
I don't think I remember that part of Mr.
Really?
Rogers. No.
It's a whole song.
Clearly, I'm not up on my Mr. Rogers.
So the problem here is, I know I'm supposed to be kind, but maybe that seems like an insurmountable hill to climb, right? I mean, it's a command, and we have our example, but what does that mean sometimes?
Right.
And it's, and kind of who, right?
Yeah. Well, I think in some ways there's this feeling of I'm so busy and stressed with my own life that I don't have energy to go out and be kind. Because we have this idea that kindness looks like, volunteering at a homeless shelter or some other thing that requires a consistent spot in our schedule, that we have to create this room for it, or doing something that's totally outside of our skill set.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think about that sometimes, especially in youth group growing up, they'd be like, here's what kindness looks like. It looks like, reaching out to the new kid at your school and, different ideas that are true, but may not necessarily be in line with this is who God's created you to be.
I mean, this gets into your personality, your skills, your gifts, but there are things we need to overcome, right? I mean, some of that stuff, like I don't have time, like that, I think we're going to have to overcome that to a certain extent. Yeah, if you get in your head that you've got to volunteer to do something that's really just going to start suffocating you, and that could be a problem.
Well, and I think so much of kindness is just the little things. It's the letting the people in the grocery line who have two things go ahead of you.
Yeah.
It's the getting off your phone and looking at the cashier and asking them how their day is. It's, smiling at the people in the parking lot who are walking past you. It's little things. It's not like this huge, giant... I don't know. Yeah. I think we have this wrong vision.
I think so too. Yeah, I think it's much more about, seeping into our character or just kind of the things we do day to day. And I think that's one of the barriers too, is not seeing the need for stuff like that. It's so easy to get on our own little bubble here.
Right.
We might have our earbuds in. We might be looking at our phone. We might be like, I just got to go to the store for 5 minutes and buy these things and get home, because we're rushing and we're so busy.
Right.
Not seeing the need to kind of expand our radar a little bit to more than just, us and our phone and our shopping cart or our car or whatever. Because there's millions of people around us. So millions of opportunities to be kind.
Well, and I think some of the biggest opportunities to be kind are in our own families. And sometimes we exempt our family from kindness. We're just like,
unfortunately,
you're just family. I don't need to be kind to you. Suck it up. But really, those are the people that we should be kindest to, because we live with them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that, that can really, especially any relationship, the parent-child relationship, the spouse relationship, the lack of kindness can really mess that up. Mm-hmm. It can, as a child, having experienced feeling ignored and, just like a waste of space. Like, that can really mess your head.
Oh, yeah.
So being able to do that, to recognize that and not do that with my kids and be like, okay, you're talking to me? Well, I'm going to turn around and not look at the computer while I'm talking to you and give you my attention.
Yeah.
It's such a small thing, but it's so dehumanizing to have someone ignore you while you're talking, and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, I think we do. We slip into default things because we're not thinking of the impact of our actions on others. I mean, when it's our kids, the impact is huge, but when it's anybody, it's still a big impact.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we get into these ruts where it's just easier to be critical. It's easier to ignore, flat out ignore. Or sometimes, it's kind of like when we were talking about love the other week, where control an outcome of some kind. So instead of using a carrot, a kindness, we're going to scare them straight. We're gonna
Which works so well.
Right. And so there could be any number of these little, just they're so ingrained in us sometimes. I think they become habits. I'm critical and I get the certain result, and that's just fine. But changing that into kindness is going to take some real intentional effort.
Right.
We should get into the different kinds, right? Because kindness isn't going to be the same for everybody. Like what I do to be kind might look a little different.
Right. Well, I think, like you were talking about personality types and skill sets, if somebody's like, hey, I would like you to be kind and paint a picture for me, I'd be like, you are talking to the wrong person,
Sure.
But I have a friend who's amazing at that. She did a bunch of stuff for our church, like just paintings, and
yeah,
she's amazing. But that
giving
is
something
totally not my skill set.
Right. Yeah, you've got to give something you can actually give.
Right? Exactly.
I mean, yeah, because otherwise you're going to be like that would be a form of torture for you to be like, you're not coming out until you've painted 15 paintings.
And it would be a form of torture for everyone who saw them. It would just not work out well. So recognizing like, okay, this is who I am. This is my skill set. And then, personality types. We've talked before about Carol Tuttle's personality types. They've been so helpful for our family to recognize, type 1s start things. Type 2s make a plan. Type 3s get things done. Type 4s refine the process. And so recognizing, okay, I'm a type 4, so my job is to refine the process. So if somebody's like, hey, I need you to come up with an idea, not the right person for that,
Yeah.
So being able to recognize like this is where my strengths are. So my kindness looks like going a little out of my way to help people with the things that are, within my capabilities.
Mm-hmm. I love this idea, and I think hopefully we hit on it enough and it's clear that God made us a certain way, and we're called to, out of that way that we are, do things in the world. I mean, it's very intentional on the part of God's part as well.
He wrote our DNA.
Yeah.
He picked who we're going to be.
We just heard a really powerful message, and that was one of the big keys parts of it is from Pastor Elijah from Uganda, and he was talking about, we need your help us over here in Uganda. We're really struggling, but do what you can. Do what you do, because God made you to do that stuff. And so do that. Don't do something else. Do that stuff.
Right. I actually wrote down an example from that. He was talking about, because one of the questions was asked, like, how do we help out when we have a congregation of like older people, and, how do we still help out? And he was talking about this older woman who is in a wheelchair. And so you would think that she couldn't do a lot.
That's it. She can't do mission work.
Right. But instead, she's going around mobilizing her entire community. She's in a small town, and she's mobilizing them to both give to Hands of Love. That's the name of the ministry. And then also sew for Hands of Love.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so cool, because I know sometimes as someone who has a chronic illness and don't have a lot of energy, it's hard for me when people are like, you need to be doing something else, because I just feel like I am lucky to be doing the things that I'm doing,
Well, and when we hear from somebody like, you really ought to this, you really ought to that, that's them expressing probably the stuff that they're able to do or not, but it's probably more something that's familiar to them. But that doesn't mean it's what you got to do.
Right.
I mean, we want to listen with the critical ear and respond if it's the Holy Spirit speaking through that person and prompting us to do something, but it might not be the right thing to do.
Definitely.
It was powerful hearing a story like that,
Yeah.
I mean, kids, people with chronic illnesses or disabilities, like none of us have been forgotten by God. It's not like we don't have God's full attention, right? He can give his full attention to you and to me and to everyone and fill us with the Holy Spirit. And he's made us to do things. And so let's do that stuff. And that's going to be kindness is a big part of that.
So it doesn't have to be big. It will probably be outside of your comfort zone. So, if you're somebody who is good at relationships, it might mean that you do go up to the new kid. That's something that we've had to work at in our church, being able to just to reach out to new people. But the way that we reach out to new people at our church is very different. Like, we have them over one-on-one to get to know them because we don't like groups, you know?
Sure. Well, and even that woman who's rallying the troops to get a bunch of sewing done, like, that probably is uncomfortable to be like, will you help me do this thing I'm passionate about? Like, that's going to involve some vulnerability.
Right.
And, maybe some rejection. Not everybody's going to say yes, but that core part of her that's like, I care about sewing. This is something I can do. I'm going to do it. But there's also some stretch goals there, some pushing through that needs to happen. That's always going to be true.
All right. Well, hopefully that gives us all something to think about. Stop and think, what does it look like for you to be kind? It doesn't have to be giant. When I worked at a fast food place, one of the ways I was like, I am going to be extra kind to my customers. I'm going to make sure that every person that goes through this drive-thru leaves with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
And it's just something little. Doesn't take a lot of extra time, but it's something we can do. We can just reach out just a little bit.
It's like, just a little thing. Brene Brown talks about this, where there's this cashier, I think, that told her, but there's lots of stories like this in her book where it means so much when the person goes through the line and they're not talking on their phone and just paying the money and taking the bags and leaving. Like, look me in the eye. I'm a person here.
Yeah.
So we may only talk for 2 minutes, but it's important to treat people with respect and dignity in the little interactions that we have. Just because you may never see that person again doesn't mean we can't be kind.
As always, pick whether today is going to be awesome or whether you're going to strengthen those neural pathways to encourage your life to be miserable. We love you guys and we're praying for you. Thanks to everybody that's been sharing the show and listening to the show. We really appreciate it. If you have found this podcast helpful, please do continue to share it. And come back tomorrow, and we are going to talk about being kind to other people.
Tough,
a little more than we did today. You guys have an awesome Wednesday, and we will talk to you tomorrow.
All right, see ya.